Is navigating aging, and today's topic is creating meaning and joy. So, it was interesting today. So, last week we started off our navigating aging series talking about there's an inside part of aging and an outside part of aging. So, inside is, I'd say, meaning, how we're feeling about it, our attitude, and then outside is getting a great if you need a wheelchair, getting a great wheelchair, assisted living, legal paperwork, documents, things like that. Where we're going to live. So last week we talked quite a bit about some exterior, outside of aging, and today is an inside of aging topic of creating meaning. And so before last week's workshop, I did there were so many details and research and organizing and things that I knew. And then my experience this week about this topic is I just had this blank slate. I was completely blank. It was I was just observing it, and it came, as I came closer and closer to this moment, I realized that I am that you all who showed up here today and who might listen to it later really have the wisdom to bring to the topic. I'm going to tell you my experience. For those of you who don't know, I've been geriatric care manager, so assisting adults and their adult children and their aging parents with all the challenges that may happen around aging. So I've seen a lot from inside hospitals, assisted livings, hospice, you name the setting, I've probably been there. So I see challenges, and I want to share with our family here about how can we have a great rest of our life, and it may be ours, and it may be someone we're helping. So one thing I see often is people in transition. I'm going to cough just a moment. Excuse me. People in a transition, whether it's they retired, they've been a teacher for years and now they're retired, or they've been the head of a company, or they've been a consultant, or they've been a dance teacher forever and now they're not, or their body is changing and they can't walk as much as they used to, and they were always a hiker and they're not doing that anymore. Philosophers have toyed with the idea of what's meaning in life for a long time. Viktor Frankl has a whole book, The Search of Meaning, man's search for meaning. And as a society, I see we tend to put a lot of pressure on ourselves as far as even like when my daughter Mackenzie was little, people would be like, "You're going to run for president." If you're like, "I don't know about that." And in first grade, they said, like, "What do you want to be when you're older?" And she wrote, "I just want to be a normal person." So we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. I'm going to solve world hunger. I'm going to feed all the homeless. I'm going to solve some big problem. And if we're not doing that, like if we're not that dance teacher and teaching hundreds of people anymore, what are we? What meaning do we have? And so can we pivot and let go of that, what we thought we were, who we thought we were, what we thought was meaningful, let go, pivot to something else. And that pivot might be every week. As I was talking to, I bring up Mackenzie again, but I was talking to her about the workshop today. I said, what do you think about the difference between meaning and purpose? And she's like, well, purpose is something that you do. And people buy workshops and travel to Bali to find purpose. And she's like, well, it could happen. Like if you have a purpose for longer than 2 weeks, that's a long time. And that was interesting thought. Like, is purpose for our whole life, or is that gifts? And then what's meaning? So these words sometimes get tangled in with each other. But for today, I want to talk about meaning as the feeling that we get. Joy is a feeling we get from life. Are we enjoying life? Do we feel like we're meaningful? So that's how I'll define it today. The feeling we get of something that we're doing. And as I've seen people get older, go through these aging challenges, what I found is that people really have a choice of how they go through it. Um, I've seen some people like really not like, I mean, who likes needing to wear glasses or, you know, park a little closer, maybe a special spot, or, maybe need to move. Like, who likes that? That's not really something that we have to like, or prefer, but can we embrace it and make the most of it? Um, I don't know if you all know or remember Mike Feeney, who was someone in our church. He used to volunteer for Now Productions when I worked there. He had this grand plan when he was retired. He was retired. He was going to get a car and he was going to travel the world, or travel the United States, but he was going to do some traveling, especially by car. Well, just before he retired, he developed ALS, and I felt bad for him. Like, oh my gosh, that's so sad at first. But then I saw him pivot to, he started taking the master's in spiritual science class and the doctor class. As his neurological disease progressed, he couldn't walk, and he couldn't talk, he couldn't move his arms, he was using a computer to communicate. Well, when I looked in his eyes, he was so lit up with spirit and love. He was having this magnificent inner experience. And from that day on, it really changed my perspective of what someone could choose in any situation. So I'll tell you one story. I was just talking to Polly Sanderson last night. I was telling her I was going to do the workshop today. And she said one time she was walking on the street, and this young boy was walking a dog, and the dog decided just to lay down and it wouldn't move. So the boy's on the phone saying, "Mom, the dog won't move. I can't get home." So Polly approached the dog. She loves dogs. So she bent down. She started talking to the dog. She's like, "I get it. Some days are really hard. You just don't want to move. I totally get it. But if you get up and walk home, then you could just take a really nice long rest." And so while the boy is over here talking to the mom, he's like, "Yeah, this lady's talking to the dog." The dog gets up and she's like, "Yeah, just go home, have a really long rest." And the dog walks home, and the boy's like, "Well, the dog has decided to move, so we're on our way home." So she was writing JR after that, and she said, "I don't really see a difference between what I did with that dog and facilitating a training for 100 people." And he wrote back, "No difference at all." So what we place on the thing that we're doing, the meaning that we place, and the choice that we make about what we're doing means a lot. So I think I will leave it there as far as and kind of open it up. I'd love to hear what this blank slate has for us today, and your wisdom about. I know some of you on the call have gone through transitions of your own, like big transitions. We've all gone through transitions, but rather large transitions. So whether large or small, I'd love to hear what you have to say and your experience and how you're creating meaning and joy in this part of your life, and any thoughts on the topic. So if you want to raise your hand, I see John.
Hey, so you're pretty familiar with our transition, and that umbrella is still there from 2019, and in its new home, much nicer than Fontucky. We, you know, there was when Laurie was cooking for JR, and probably at least the year before he passed, and other things that showed up before that, there was, things were started getting different, and somehow the means to get by this, and I think this is the key thing, the means to handle it was always present. Like Makeda baked chocolate chip cookies for JR, and that went over really big. And so she was a welcome additional chef at Mandeville. And at some point in that last 2 years, she became a necessary part of that. And it was a wonderful experience. As a result, she got to spend that time with JR in his last couple years, and in an increased kind of way. So, and then when the doctors at UCLA said, well, you know, this is what it is, and they put the label on it, the A word, and said, well, we yeah, the A word, we Alzheimer's. And we recommend, see, I can even say that out loud now without getting in trouble. So we've adapted a lot. And it's just a lot of things. Lori wouldn't tell her own mom, and, because who was the person she loved maybe the most in the world. So she went on a walk on Easter in 2019, and the whole world suddenly knew. We were on Fox News, and so we went on these trips. We went backpacking. Things just seemed to change, and instead of being broken, it was like, wow. Lori'd say, they don't want us to stay right here, and I took that as she was talking with the David Kingdom. And so we've been basically living that life in one form or another. That was 2016, I think, that first backpacking trip. And then we found a way to kind of go backpacking full time with this camper. And we've been doing that for the last 5 years. And I realized this was me personally, what I've wanted to do since 1980, and here we were, so something that was viewed as a tragedy, average life expectancy 5 years. I mean, that was just what a particular doctor said, but we've just turned it into something, or I don't say we've turned it into, it's like we've been given this incredible gift. And it's not a compromise. Like we're getting to do the bucket list, however we do it, like that's what I was saying. It's like, and Lori's just, I mean, the perfection and the spiritual thing. I mean, Lori was so much smarter than I was. And now it's like that something just was set aside so that the spirit could come forward in a greater way. And I can assure you it has. Every time she puts her hand on me, and I instantly feel healed. Every time she just beams at me with the face of God and says, I love you so much. That's what I wanted back in the days when things were supposedly the way they were supposed to be. And I just see, like, I see no end to it. The kingdom of God is present, so I'll let some other folks share. Thank you.
It's beautiful. Thank you, John. Yvonne. And unmute.
Thank you for your sharing. That was beautiful, just beautiful. I don't know how I'll put this in words, but with Zoom and the opportunity to hear John Roger quotes 24/7, I've heard a lot of JR quotes. And what I realized is right now, everything that comes to me from the outside is really me. It's me inside that's being reflected to me. And so now it's a process of welcoming everything and allowing everyone to have whatever the experience they have. There's no separation. There's no right, wrong. There's no good or bad. It's like if it comes to me, I bless it and I bring it present, and my inner life has turned into this amazing joy. It's just so much joy is present because it's like after all these years, finally, like the struggle is over because I'm allowing it all in. There is no separation, and what I have in my consciousness is my choice. So I just wanted to share that because that inner place, Benjamin was Benjamin's last name. He's the conductor of the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra, and he's such an ambassador for positive. Choose the positive. Choose what's possible, and he demonstrates it on all the levels. And he's been such a joy to me. So I feel like as I change inside, things on the outside come in to support that and lift it more. So it's not like the outer, you came in to do this. It's not like that's changed so much. It's the onion is being peeled away until who I am is present now. And I'm so grateful. And of course, I love you, Cheryl. You're very special to me because of my Cheryl. So thank you. That's my joy. I'll put my hand down.
Thanks, Siobhan. Yeah, our loving for Cheryl goes back a long way, huh?
Yeah.
Jennifer.
Well, for a long time, you called Yvonne Mom on Now Productions, and I believed you. I really thought she was your mom. So maybe on some level. I'm actively working multiple transitions. You mentioned earlier on, yeah, I lived in Los Angeles for 30 years. And at the end of 2020, I moved to Green Bay, Wisconsin. Pandemic. My parents were in their 80s, and I woke up one morning and just knew. And I'll tell you, it was not expected. It was absolutely unforeseen. And I understand now what a download is. When Spirit, it felt like I didn't have a choice. I know that I do have a choice and I did have a choice, but it felt like there was no choice. So there's been a change of venue that is highly dramatic in its differences. I got here at the end of 2020. My dad went in the hospital in March of 2021 and passed away in May. I could never imagine a life without my dad in it, my parents in it. My mom just turned 86 last week. As long as she's on the planet, I am here with her. There's a lot of that. I also have run a consulting business and was very successful and had a lot of wealth. And these days don't have a lot of wealth. A lot of it went away, and got severed from my contract abruptly and haven't wanted to go back to work for the first time in my entire existence. So I've been on a little bit of a hiatus, and now I'm seeking work because I need to live. I'm not independently wealthy. I need to work for a living. But all of this and the culture, the people, and what's so fascinating to me is I am so clear that this needs to be, or I choose to make it, a daily practice, extremely conscious and purposeful. My meaning was always my inner self-worth, or my meaning at some level was always attached to what I was doing in the world. And these days, there's just no question. I mean, family's always been the top priority. Now I'm living that and demonstrating that on an hourly basis sometimes. And I need to make it a conscious choice that this is a really positive thing. I get the joy of making dinner tonight for my husband and my mom. I have a family of 3. I have the privilege of doing this. I have the privilege of doing that. And I am working it actively because there are days where it doesn't feel that way. There are days when I miss my old life, and I desperately miss my friends and the community and all of that. And Zoom I spent so many hours on Zoom in my life that Zoom doesn't, it's good and I love it and I'm grateful. It's not the same as being there. But I'm trying to make it so, and I think in the past, I have not done transitions well. And this time I just made a choice. I'm going to do better. I'm just going to do better. So I don't know if that's for someone else or just my own expression, but thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Oh, it's nice.
It is funny. I'll tell you a quick funny story. Okay, it's another Mackenzie story, but when I wasn't aware of how many transitions we go through just even in a day. You go from sleeping to waking up to getting dressed, maybe to go to work or go to the gym or go to, the living room. There's like all of those are transitions. And I saw when Mackenzie was very little, she was having so much fun with what she was doing. It was so good, but she didn't want to stop. She didn't even want to stop to go to the bathroom. And so eventually, like when she couldn't hold anymore, she'd go to the bathroom, and she'd be like all crooked up, like, said, "Do you have to go to the bathroom?" "How do you know?" "Well, you look like you need to go to the bathroom." So one time she came out, I think she was maybe 3, and she went to the bathroom and she came out and she said, "I never want to go to the bathroom again in my whole entire life." But it was that transition. She just was struggling with moving from one thing to another, thinking like, if I give up this really fun thing that I'm doing right now, will something fun ever happen after that? Because it was a blank slate. She was enjoying right now, but what about later in the day? Or, who knows what that would have been. So I see that I'm paying more attention to that in myself as well. And it could be like, I'm going to go to some fun workshop, or I'm going to go to some fun party, right? Like I'm looking forward to it till like the day before. And then I start going, I don't really want to go. I just like my bed. I just want to be here. I'm comfortable. I don't ever want to go to the bathroom again. But then when I go, okay, I'll just, I hear that in myself go, it's just a transition, and being compassionate with myself and moving on to the next thing. Then I can open up to, wow, I didn't know this next thing was going to be even better or so magical. So anyway, I had that to share.
That's great. That's great.
Hi, Hal.
Hi, Cheryl. So I get to sit in on your Heart Reach group, and I invite everyone to attend mine on Thursday nights as well at 7. When I think of aging and joy, I'm reflecting upon my my father who raised me, who I was adopted, and he was in World War II, and he said that he saw so much hardship and cruelty to other people that when he came back from the army, he decided to do those things that were more humane and humanistic and caring for others. And he devoted the rest of his life of being of service. And he was involved in so many different projects all the way up to the end. It was so many that I had him do before he passed his own eulogy, because there's no way that I could have presented my father in a way that he exemplified in the world. And there was just so many organizations that he was involved in that I would say brought him just tremendous joy. He was involved with Costco, and he would pick up every morning food from Costco, because they just discard things at Costco. They don't reuse things. And so he developed a relationship in Northern California, in Southern California, with the Costco out there. And he would pick up food every morning and distribute it to the homeless shelters. And then soon it became so large that he developed 6 teams of people that he gathered from the community would then distribute food out in Los Angeles. And he became part of, he was really sharp at business, and he was involved with many children's centers, particularly children who were autistic and developmentally disabled. And he would get equipment that they needed out in the community, and then make sure that they had exactly what they needed. He goes, whatever you need, I will get for you. And man, his garage was always interesting because he would collect a lot of wheelchairs and handicap equipment for people. And soon it became that if you needed any handicap equipment, that you would call my father, Dan, and he would provide for you anything that you needed, whether it be an electric wheelchair, a bed that goes up and down, chairs, you name it. And pretty soon it became that everyone, when they passed, would give my father this equipment. And then it became that he needed larger spaces. So then he started using the garages of his neighbors. And then it became, he had to get literally warehouses. And people would call him day and night for equipment. And his phone never stopped ringing, ever. When my father passed, my wife and I, all we did was, we weren't in sorrow. We were just bragging about what a wonderful man my father was and still is in my heart. And that for me is what joy is all about. When you can devote, I think, your entire life in being of service with others and selflessly give to others, I think we learn a profound sense of joy that comes from that. I honor him, and I honor those that are being of service with others. Yeah, that's what I wanted to share.
Thank you, Hal. And that's what I have found as one of the keys to meaning and joy is service. And it's perfect that we're here with Heartfelt Service Foundation. The service and compassion, self-compassion and compassion with others. And I've got a couple of JR quotes that I would like to read to you. JR says, when we give, at the very least, we are more likely to experience that our life has meaning, that we are living our life on purpose. We sometimes find our lives in losing it to service to others. And JR, so many people want to know why we are here. If the answer lay in the mind, the engineers would have figured it out and would be our spiritual leaders. If having power in the world was the answer, then the politicians would be our enlightened guides. If the answer is found in fame and glamour, then our celebrities would offer us much more than publicity and good looks. Our true leaders are those who look at life in a radically different way. They know that love is the radical solution. It's radical because most of us don't approach life that way. For the most part, we approach life reactively, trying to control rather than letting go. The answer is that out of God comes all things, that God loves all of its creation, and that not one soul will be lost. This is the context for living a life without fear or worry. As you integrate these truths into yourself, you will let go and relax into the arms of the beloved. And John Morton, quote, it may seem at times that joy is missing. It may seem to be asleep inside of us, taking a rest and waiting to come awake again. The joy is never missing. Joy is always present, and it's up to us to awaken it. Claiming the joy is a movement. It's rising up one more time to meet the joy. It's taking the responsibility to create the joy in what you're doing. John Roger has said, if you want to be happy, do happy things. So it follows that if you want to be joyful, do joyful things. Anybody else want to talk about how they're finding meaning in a new transitional time? Penelope, Susan, thank you.
Want me?
Susan, yes,
Just-
that's you.
I
Hi.
wanted to get the gallery so I could look at all of you, but it just,
Yeah.
oh, there. I think I can get it now. There we go. Hi.
Nice.
Yeah, so this year I'm 80. And I never knew I was going to live this long.
I keep hearing that.
Well,
keep
my
hearing that
family, they were all
keep
gone.
hearing
I had
people that.
one aunt who lived till 85. Everybody else is, dead a long time ago.
Mhm.
So I never planned for it. And it's been quite interesting, and especially the last 10 years have been so strange because I've gone through physical stuff, well, I lost all my money, whatever I had left, my place, just all this stuff happened. Actually, at that time, around that time, I started working with older people, taking care of them. So I lived with more than a few people with dementia or Alzheimer's, some of them. And I discovered a lot doing that too. One woman, little Italian woman, I brought in a boombox, and this woman could not take care of herself. She couldn't even wash. She had to wash her with, wipes, and she wouldn't go in the shower, all that stuff. So I brought a boombox, and I was listening to a lot of Bocelli at that time. So I turned it on one day, and she came over to the box and just hung over it. She couldn't leave it. And about half an hour later, she said, "Who is he?" I said, "Well, he's an Italian singer." "Is he married?" She was in such a different world. And I guess I had the boombox going every day, at least part of the time, for about a week or so. And she began to function differently. Her cognitive facility got much better. She walked into the shower by herself and washed herself. And I watched all this. I mean, it was so amazing to me. And they didn't know at that time that music really helped cognitive stuff with older people. And I actually called the Alzheimer's coach in San Jose because she had been at the house to talk to us when I first got hired. And I told her about it. And wouldn't you know, within about a year, it was out. But I'm so happy because that was an amazing discovery. And every time I decided at a certain point I was done with it. I lived with a 94-year-old guy who had frontal lobe dementia, which is the one that focuses you on sex. So that was difficult to live with for me. I've stayed there almost a year, 11 and a half months. And even with him, though, there were moments where he just talked to me and knew what was going on. And I took advantage of those moments, have the conversation. And also to tell his daughter when he said he wouldn't mind living someplace else with older people. And that was the end of my job. But that was good because I was done with it. And now I'm doing something I never wanted to do. I'm living in low-income apartments with older people. I like living with all ages. That's, always been a key for me. And I'm just, I'm watching, I'm observing a lot. And I realize that there's not a lot of people I can be close to here. There are some, but it's an amazing experience. And my life is different. I had to close myself in for about 3 years. I had the surgery that completely changed everything, and I had to recover from it. That's another thing. I saw, only because I lived this long, how our bodies heal themselves. And that particular surgery was real hard. So I'm not even talking about that, but all the other things in my body that have changed in the last few years, I would have never understood that. I mean, I did a lot of healing work and I saw a lot of healing right before my very eyes. But to see, you know, things like scars on my cornea from shingles disappeared. I just got a new whatchamacallit, new prescription for glasses, right? And my eyes, he said the back of my eyes, everything looks perfect. And my astigmatism got better. All kinds of things have been getting better in this last few years. And I think it's great. And it gives me a lot of forward looking, you know. I don't have to look back. I don't have to hang on all of this stuff. I think that's one of the reasons why I've gotten better. I'm not hanging on it. I'm letting go of so much in my life. That includes relationships. I let go of a number of relationships that seem to have no value for anybody. So why stay? You know, it's really been different. And I really appreciate it. I feel blessed right now that I can I see things differently. And I'm looking forward to getting out of here too. And as I was telling Noreen in the Death Cafe, you know, I'm really now getting with taking care of the things that just seem like a big thing, to get rid of stuff and get rid of paper and, you know, files and all this. Although I just realized I used to have 3 file cabinets, 3 big ones from all my past stuff. And now I only have 1 and it's not full. So I'm working on that, and I'm working on giving away things that I love, because who am I saving them for? You know, so it became fun this weekend. I was getting ready for inspection here and I had to work so hard. I worked all Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and got up at 6 this morning to finish. And of course, I knew that they probably wouldn't come to my apartment because they just do random, right? And I did it anyway, and I enjoyed all the hard work. For the first time, that particular, you know, piece of it, the paper especially, has always been difficult for me. I'm very dyslexic. And there I was having fun with it and feeling like, wow, I'm going to do this. It's really, really nice. So things have changed and I can't explain it. And I know that all relationships are inside of me. So I'm going through a lot of seeing those. It's kind of lovely. Yeah. I wouldn't mind staying now. For a while but I wouldn't mind staying and I don't mind going. So it's a nice place to be. Anyway, I love you all. Thank you, Cheryl.
Beautiful. Thank you, Susan. Beautiful. Penelope? Still want to share?
I was talking this morning with my husband and I
Hang on a second. You went on mute, Penelope. Can you unmute?
there.
There you go.
I was
Perfect,
telling
thank you.
Laren this morning a story about when I had a open heart surgery back in 2015. And the first few days after, I thought, oh, this has got to be close to the end. And I always like to think I'm predicting it accurately, and
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Yeah.
I went for my first meeting with my cardiac guy afterwards, and he said, in 6 months, you're going to feel like $1 million. You're going to feel so good. And I thought, from your lips to God's ears, let's watch, let's see. And as it turned out, I was feeling much, much better, much more together and useful and youthful at the end of 6 months. And I was still working up to walking more, because that's the prescription for getting back into your healthfulness. So as I was thinking about that, I told Laren I was really fearful because I thought that maybe my heart would just stop and I would drop dead on the ground someplace public, which would be awful, with nobody around that I knew, and no way to help myself, and then I'd be dead, and I would not have been able to say goodbye to all my friends and loved ones. And I thought, well, then you're just going to have to get well, aren't you? So there you are. One of the things that I've been filling up my time with, because I'm extremely creative, for a couple of years during the pandemic, I made little girls' dresses, and those were fun. And I seem to have run out of steam on that. And now I've taken on another project, helping a friend of mine put together his book. He's 84, so he's telling the story of his life. So I'm typing it for him.
Mhm.
And that takes up time. But what I've also been doing is taking myself on little vacations where I go and see people and things that I have not seen and done. When I was growing up, my family, well, my parents and I saw a lot of California. My dad had a job that took him north and south and east and west, and we were on the road for a couple of weeks at a time, going to count the cattle in the cattle lots, the feedlots, because he worked for a meat packing company. But I never got to see certain things that I wanted to see. And now I'm just kind of working out how to go and do those things. So I'm taking little trips to fill in those little places, and also little nostalgic tours to places like Mendocino, which I absolutely adore, and Yosemite, which is crazy beautiful. Just stuff like that is making me real happy, and I'm doing it on my own, so I have a huge sense of independence with it, and I'm walking all the time. I'm walking. So those are the things that I'm doing to fill up those spaces, because I don't have anybody and the little kids to take care of. My parents and his parents are gone, and my family, they're all off the planet, and most of his family is too. So all I think is I just need to make myself happy. So the way I do that is to find the things that I have. Like, I don't have a big bucket list. It's not like climb Mount Everest, but I do have a bucket list, and it's small things that I could do a little at a time. And God bless us all.
Thanks, Penelope. I have been hearing several people just in the last few days, including my own mother. And I asked her about aging, and I was telling her about these talks, and she said, she's 82, and she said, I never thought I would be this age. When she was younger, I guess she thought, like, she saw people, like, when they would be like 67, 68, they would die. So she wouldn't think, and she's like, all of a sudden I'm this age, and the age, it doesn't really make sense. It's just kind of a number. So it's an interesting thing. And I've been really appreciating hearing each of your stories. And for me, if I hear one person could do something well, or create happiness, or age well, like there's this, I think they call her like the dancing granny or something. She's 100 years old and she tap dances, and you can watch videos of her on Instagram. And just seeing her, just one person, it changes my view of aging, because still, even working at aging, I keep thinking like, oh, here we go. There's a limit. My body's going to decline or something, but I hold the vision of the people that I meet that are older, that are creating meaning, creating joy, staying physical, doing their bucket list, and doing those things. So each of your stories has fed that for me. So I thank you for that. And then, a friend of ours moved into an assisted living from home, and she has a great attitude. And she's like, there's a big transition, right, to move to a community. She's like, I'm going to find my ministry here. And so God Spirit brought her the people that she's ministering to. And so she's finding meaning, and it's just, another beautiful example for me. If you could find your ministry and meaning anywhere you go, if you look for it and you choose it. Anybody else?
Oh.
Laren. Hey, Laren.
Yeah, well, I guess over my life, I have observed people retire and die. I mean, I remember when I was a young kid, the barber shop where I used to go, the guy who owned it got old, but he was still young. And then he sold the barber shop, and when I saw him again, he came back to visit. He was old, and shortly after that, he was dead. And your theme of purpose just, I mean, it just seems so important to me. As annoying as I find it sometimes, I am so grateful for the opportunity to work in service to the ministerial board, because anymore that seems to be my job. Outside work is, I haven't been pursuing it, and I'm not particularly interested in having to do it. But the board work is always there, and it gives me purpose. It gives me a reason to get up every morning. And I think there's tons of opportunity in the church, if anybody's interested, to take that on as a purpose. I mean, I never looked to become this involved. Well, that's not true. I never had a plan to get involved with the ministerial board and become a fixture. I never had much of a plan of anything in my life, actually, now that I think about it. But I was open to responding when things would show up, and I guess that's pretty much the story of my life. But and I mean, that's where I am today, and with the movement and the board and stuff like that. And I guess all I can say is I'm really grateful, because it keeps me moving. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Larry. Jennifer.
Thank you, because what Laren just said, choosing to respond, I was just ruminating. I talked about choice and choosing, and I was having a conversation with my mom just yesterday morning, and we were talking about, look, we need to plan the winter. Winter's different here. We need to put stuff on the calendar. And we've been to concerts and fairs and farmers markets, and it's not about the doing, but it's the being as we're moving. And I was saying, let's find something to go do a service project. And she's like, oh, I'm not really interested in it. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Let's just go do something new. We might learn something. We might take an interest. But I've been listening, and the theme of movement, and I was walking and watching ourselves. Susan was talking about watching her own healing. And it's like, I just think that, and me in my head about choice, and you talk about attitude. My purpose right now is to be of service in whatever way Spirit calls me to be of service. And this doesn't look like anything I prepared for, but it is what it is. And I was talking to Arissa last night. I said, I'm doing this. She goes, you're very clear. It's very different, but this is what you're choosing. And I think if we all just, for me, I'll speak for me, not everybody, not all. I just need to choose to move and be open to Spirit's whispers, because sometimes Spirit doesn't say it loudly or clearly, sometimes it's just a whisper. And I just want to say that I am so tremendously grateful because spending this time with my mom, we're very similar in some ways. And I guess I have like a coach and a preview. And we talk a lot about attitude and that choice of what we're going to focus on. Because that's ultimately the only thing, I mean, back to Insight One, right? The only thing we have a choice over is our own attitude. So thank you for letting me share that.
Mhm. Thanks, Jennifer. When I picture life's journey and picture like, okay, well, when we're younger, we choose the elementary school, and then we're looking at the high school, and then we like prepare for college and prepare for the next transition of a job, and maybe we have a couple jobs, but it seems like and then we prepare for the wedding, maybe prepare for kids, but then there's this point that it just drops off of planning. And maybe that's because it used to, like, people, as we've been talking about, maybe people used to die, right? There's like work and then retire, and then retirement was just like this, I don't know, like nirvana. You get to just make your own schedule and just be happy in the clouds. I don't know, it's an interesting view, but we tended not to prepare for that or for aging, and or know about it, really, because we didn't see it. And sometimes, like when I say the one person, if you see them, so if someone has cancer, and they like talk to someone else who has gotten through cancer, they're like, oh, I get it. There's a road, there's a light ahead, this is what it could look like. So someone's helping navigate the journey. The different transitions from job to retirement to service that you've been talking about. And so it is helpful to find just, a person out there that can be with you on the journey. And that's why we're, having these talks now on Tuesdays, so that we can know that we're together on this, that one of us has gone through something before, and that we can help each other and know that there's light ahead. And each of your stories today has inspired me and given me clues as far as what to do in my own future and aging. And part of it sounds like it's just being present to what unfolds. And I'm with Laren. I've never really had this plan. It's just life unfolds. Could have some desires and things I put in a light or seed for, and then it just kind of happens. But I know, and what's nice about being this age is I can look back and go, it's always worked out. I've always been provided for. So then I can trust more into the future, of it will unfold, and it'll be okay. I have stories that are, coming up, about clients, but I don't think it's important right now. Penelope. Unmute.
My audio. There.
It's there.
Thought for the day. God loves us and wants us to be happy. This is my theme song.
Amen.
No, it's God is
I-
us and wants to be happy.
God wants to be happy, and God is us. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I love that. God's like, can you please be happy? The part of me that's you. Hey, John.
Hey, wow. I think Laren and Penelope just kind of summed it up.
Mhm.
I just, if any of you are weird in the way I am, I said, hey, why do you put a heart up for them? He didn't like my sharing. Is like, no, that was me spacing out. I just loved all of what everybody had to say. Each sharing was a seminar and a discourse, and I just feel like there is no death. Like that's to me one of the big secrets. There's no death. There's just we're just in a series of ongoing transitions as we've been in since God said, "Let there be light," and I'm just so grateful that I get to spend this time with all of you. And maybe we've always been doing this and always will be doing this. Because God bless you. I just really love each one of you very personally.
Mm. Thank you, John. All right. My heart is full. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Next week, we're going to talk about navigating difficult conversations with aging loved ones. Like maybe it's, do you still want to drive? Maybe it's, can you fill out these legal papers? Or where do you want to live? Things like that. So it's been a topic that's been asked for. So we'll tackle that. So I hope you join us, bring your wisdom and bring your questions and your heart. I love you and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Cheryl. You were good.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you so much.
God is good.
We love this. Thank you, darling.
Thank you.
Thank you. Love you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Nice to see you, Peggy. I see you.
Nice to see all of you.
Thank you so much.
Take care, Maritza. Bye, Susan.